only thing they're gonna save the streets is something that come from it. I used to be a monster. I didn't know what a man was, cause when now. When my brother got shot 56 times with an AK-47, and they left him out in the rain for 4 hours in front of my mama. Everybody that lost something. Pain, lack is what breed killers. Lack of resources. Boy, we don't know that back going to get no job and the refrigerator empty. And we 14 years old and can't go get no job to pay that bill, man. You know what I'm saying? Y'all.
You woke? Time to get up. Welcome to Thought You're Awoke, No Speed Limit podcast, where we always talk about politics, religion, culture, and resistance. Today, I want to talk about a subject that's close to my heart, and that's talking about black men in trouble. That's right, there are certain groups of black men that are in trouble, and I want to start that story right now.
Let her answer though. I ain't got nothing against nobody, mama, or none of that. So if they grieve, they don't grieve. That ain't got nothing to do with them.
Do the same thing to you, so why not do it to them? Why show them compassion when they ain't gonna show your folks no compassion?
They saying he ain't sparing shit.
For what? They ain't gonna spare me. Yeah, wait. When if they son end up dead and they come to court, they ain't gonna spare me in the courtroom.
Hey, I know
they gonna want my ass slaughtered. You hear me?
Yeah, when it be us, they be
On the
laughing.
night of September 21st, 2024, multiple shooters jumped out of a vehicle in front of the Hush Lounge in the 5 Points South area of Birmingham, Alabama. 4 people, unfortunately, Roderick Lynn Patterson, Anita Hallman, Taj Booker, and Carlos McClain were killed, and another 17 individuals injured. Though the assailants escaped the scene, they were captured a few weeks later. Damien McDaniel, Naquan Lawler, Larry Denzel Rollins, and DeMarco Beck were all charged with a capital murder related to the mass shooting outside the Hush Lounge. This is where the plot gets even more sinister. Damien McDaniel, along with other individuals, became the focus of a group of individuals who were allegedly responsible for at least 30% of the murders in the city of Birmingham.
Okay, we had to come out to Alabama for this story. This is just straight up crazy. Already charged in the deaths of 11 people, 4 of whom were killed in a mass shooting in downtown Birmingham late last year. Damien McDaniel has now been charged with killing a firefighter at his own station nearly 2 years ago, killing a UPS employee, and a 21-year-old woman. McDaniel.
Tonight about the man accused of more than a dozen homicides in the city of Birmingham. Thanks for joining us at 10. I'm Guy Rawlins.
And I'm Sherry Falk. Within the last few hours, Birmingham police announced Damien McDaniel is now charged in connection to 4 more homicides in the city.
Officers say the first of these cases connects McDaniel with Lorenzo Wiley in the shooting death of Reginald Bryant. They believe the two killed him during a robbery on Clocher Lane on November 27, 2023. At the time, they believe Bryant was targeted. Both McDaniel and Wiley are charged with capital murder in this case.
McDaniel is also charged with capital murder in the deaths of Angelia Webster, Christian Norris, and the couple's unborn child. They were killed on Valentine's Day in 2024. The couple left to go on a date to the movies and were never seen alive again. Their bodies were found 2 days later on 10th Avenue in Wylam, both of them shot to death.
Damien McDaniel faces at least 18 counts of murder, including the Hush Lounge mass shooting. Now, at this time, he has not been convicted of those crimes, and he has pled not guilty to all of them. It may be true that the police have found a person that they can pin all these murders on, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But Damien McDaniel is a study in what happens when a young man is failed by society, his environment, and the system. Damien McDaniel's father, Damien Lauren McDaniel Jr., is currently serving 26 years in federal prison in Kentucky for trafficking cocaine and possession of firearms. He was arrested after a 6-hour standoff with U.S. Marshals in Adamsville, Alabama. Damien L. McDaniels was sentenced in 2013 when younger Damien was 10 years old. Damien himself grew up in Fairfield, Alabama, a suburb in Birmingham, Alabama. Damien McDaniel's story is a police worst nightmare, yet this story has even meanings as well.
Post-traumatic slave syndrome is an explanatory theory that really looks at multi-generational trauma. One of the things that's difficult for people is their first response is, oh my God, that happened so long ago. We're talking about people being captured, shipped, sold, beaten, raped, experimented on. And then you have to ask the question, did the trauma continue? Yes. So 300 years of trauma, no help, freed, no help, more trauma. If it's a sustained trauma, then the impact of that is also sustained. When we look at multi-generational trauma...
So now you think I may be making excuses for Damien McDaniel's actions in his life, and I'm not. And of course, some of you would say, well, Damien McDaniel wasn't a slave. But Damien McDaniel is a study in what happens when a young man is failed by society, his environment, and the system. Years old. Damien's father. So if you don't think there was any trauma in this child's life at that point in his life, then you are seriously mistaken. Your father goes to jail. He may have been a major part of your life, he may not have been, but he may have been a major part of your life. And the reason McDaniel probably was going to jail, selling cocaine and possessing a firearm, is he thought he was doing something to help his family. Now, Damien McDaniel grew up in Fairfield, Alabama. Fairfield, Alabama is a working class neighborhood. It is right outside the USS Steel plant, which for many, many years was a major employer in the area. In recent years, however, it has seen a decline. People that work there aren't quite as many that work there anymore. In fact, the company was trying to sell the part of its business that it shut down. And because of that, Fairfield itself stores are now gone. The Western Hills Mall, popular mall that used to be a popular mall in the area, is mostly empty now. Now, you can say this, that people have an opportunity to succeed or fail even in a situation like this. And Damien McDaniels is one of the small percentages of people in the city who have fallen through the cracks. Yet if you walk around the city, give yourself a day, you will see a lot of foot traffic of young men who are not doing absolutely anything in their life whatsoever. And that's when we get back to what Dr. LaGrue said. Now, Damien McDaniel is not the only story I want to talk about today. In fact, let's move to this one.
It all started as officers investigated 4 people for stealing a car. Let's go to that press conference. Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Chirobal at the podium now.
Involved in a shooting in East Price Hill that resulted in the death of 1 man. I'm here with Police Chief Teresa Thigi, Councilmember Scotty Johnson, City Solicitor Emily Smart Warner, and Assistant City Manager John Brzezina. We as a city take the loss of life extremely seriously in every circumstance. It is always a tragedy, and it's a tragedy here today. And the processes we have in place because of the collaborative agreement are here to ensure transparency and clarity as we move forward. At the top, I want to thank our police department and all the first responders for their work to keep surrounding residents safe during this incident and during the ensuing search for the remaining suspects. As with every officer-involved shooting, there will be an investigation into this incident, with the Citizens Complaint Authority and CPD running parallel investigations. As always, we are committed to a thorough process in accordance with the collaborative, and I am confident that the CCA, our police department, and our city administration will direct these investigations with transparency and clarity. Thankfully, all the responding officers were unharmed. Thank you, and I will now invite Teresa Thigi to speak.
On the morning of May 1st, Cincinnati, Ohio police stopped a suspected stolen vehicle. 4 individuals jumped out of the vehicle and began fleeing on foot. One of those individuals is 18-year-old Ryan Hinton. Ryan Hinton is running from police when he falls. He runs between the dumpster and an officer fires a shot at him after another officer says he had a gun. 2 bullets hit Ryan Hinton, killing him. The very next day, the family, including Ryan's father, Rodney Hinton Jr., are invited to the police department to watch footage of the shooting. Rodney is too distraught to watch the rest of the video. However, Rodney later returns, and this happens.
Tonight, the father of a teen fatally shot by Cincinnati police Thursday, now behind bars, after investigators say he killed a deputy from another department the next day with his car.
There is a connection between these two incidents.
38-year-old Rodney Hinton Jr. is charged with aggravated murder. Prosecutors say he intentionally struck a recently retired Hamilton County deputy who was on traffic patrol. A makeshift memorial today at the intersection. The deputy, just identified by the sheriff's office as Larry Henderson, later died at the hospital.
Again, another tragic story of two failed black men. One, a father distraught because of the death of his son. And you wonder what are the things that could have been going wrong in the father's mind to do exactly what he did after his son had been fatally shot by the police. And you understand there's a lot of anger and pain behind what happened. Let's listen.
PTSD is a disorder that occurs as a result of a single trauma. You don't even have to be there to actually get a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. You could just hear about something horrific happening to someone you love. So you have people who have experienced it firsthand, people who have witnessed it in their environment, right? People who are continuing to be oppressed. That exacerbates any possibility of healing. So it's not post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
Because then it
Yep, a traumatic event based on the fact of your recurring and constant reminder of what you feel of oppression. And why do I bring up oppression? Well, there's another case that's related to this that has been seen nationally. And let me show you something that happened.
Following the jury having found that this is a unanimous verdict, the court will read the verdict as follows. In indictment 2300241, State of Tennessee versus Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith, the counsel would like to stand with their clients. The verdicts read as follows. Count 1, second-degree murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tadarius Bean, not guilty. Count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant, Demetrius Haley, not guilty. Count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant, Justice Smith, not guilty. Count 2. Aggravated assault, acting in concert. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tadarius Bean, not guilty. Count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Demetrius Haley, not guilty. Count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Justin Smith, not guilty. Count 3. Aggravated kidnapping with bodily injury. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tadarius Bean, not guilty. Count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant, Demetrius Haley, not guilty. Count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant, Justin Smith, not guilty. Count 4. Aggravated kidnapping with a deadly weapon. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tadarius Bean, not guilty. Count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant, Demetrius Haley, not guilty. Count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant, Justin Smith, not guilty. Count 5. Official misconduct, unauthorized exercise of official authority. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tadarius Bean, not guilty. Count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant, Demetrius Haley, not guilty. Count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant, Justin Smith, not guilty. Count 6. Official misconduct, refraining from performing a duty. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tadarius Bean, not guilty. We, the jury, find the defendant, Demetrius Haley, not guilty.
I can tell you this. I didn't show the whole video. I showed a good portion of that particular video. But this was the Tyre Nichols case. If you know anything about Tyre Nichols case, you know that 6 officers were arrested and charged with the beating death of Tyre Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee. There were also 2 paramedics on the scenes that were also charged with charges related to the same incident where they did not properly take care of Mr. Nichols. Now, these officers just this week were acquitted by Tennessee courts and a Tennessee jury of all white men of committing the crimes against Tyre Nichols. And you say, how is this related to Rodney Hinton Jr.? Again, a trauma that black people have been facing over the years. Since I've been on this earth, there has been Rodney King. There has been Derek Fisher. There's been Rodney Brown. There have been case after case where police either shot a man who was unarmed or strangled a man to death in my lifetime. That post-traumatic syndrome is among all of us. Now, this does not justify what Rodney Hinton did, but it does tell you exactly the gall behind it, behind what happened. This tells you exactly how a person would feel: the anger, the pain, the frustration, the inability to fix the situation. A father losing his child. Now, we also have to look at the other side of that trauma. The other side of that trauma. The reason why I brought up Damien McDaniel earlier is simple as this. The police, our system, our world sees Damien McDaniel as a monster. He also has a black face. Therefore, other black men are coded by what they see from one person's example. And Damien McDaniel is a small segment of the black population, just like criminals on the white side are a small section of their population. But he is taken as a picture of the whole. So when an incident happens, as in the case of what's happened with the Hinton child, and I'm going to give you my own feeling about that. Ryan Hinton. Ryan Hinton is also a case of trauma. Why would this young man decide that it's okay to ride around in a stolen car with a gun? And here's the problem, the video is so blurry, they claim he picked up a gun off a ground. You can see the gun in his hand. Even the video tries to do that. This is what the media is doing right now. Guess who owns the media? White men. And I'm going to let Dr. DeGroy say what she has to say about that at the end of this. But I think it's very important that you understand where I'm coming from about this. Why I'm mentioning the failures of our society and what it has done to our youth. Damien McDaniels is only 22 years old and has already committed 18 murders in his life. You know, you heard of the Iceman, right? You heard of him. He was a failure of white society. He was this man who decided, I want to make some money, and he killed his first person. After that, it became no problem. He killed 20, 30, even more. We don't know how many people the Iceman killed, but he was a hitman for the mob. Damien McDaniels is an example of this, but he's also an example of our society because his father had been in prison when he was 10 years old. And we, as Americans, do not understand the damage that does to a young man. This is not for me to plead for his innocence, but you live in a society where black people are seen as on the bottom. Now, let me go back to this young man again and let him finish telling his story.
In the inner city communities all across America, young black boys and girls are forced to take on the responsibilities of adults at young ages, which forces us to grow up fast mentally. You see what I'm saying? When you grow up in a family or in a community where people are suffering from drug addiction, alcohol addiction. You understand where I'm coming from? These little girls being touched on by they, you know, daddies and uncles and things of that nature in their house. You understand? Struggle is a part of every struggle. Struggle is a part of every part of life, man. It don't matter where you come from. But in the project, we don't even see that as the project. We consider that the jungle. When we lack social and economical resources and all the things that's available to us is that pistol or selling some dope. You understand where I'm coming from? To provide for our families. It's because circumstances and conditions that we feel forced to go handle our business the way is either you gonna do or you gonna die. You see what I'm saying? So we chose to do. Instead of that, you gonna eat or you gonna starve. You know what I'm saying? There's no in between, like up and down. You understand where I'm coming from? So we just chose not to do that though. You hear me? So I ain't had nothing but drug dealers and killers, robbers, pimps, and all that around me. Like I told the man the other day, when I was in elementary school with the DAP program, you know, remember Dog McGraw? You understand? I ain't want to be no police officer. I ain't want to be no firefighter. And then I got suspended for 5 days when I was in the 5th grade for telling them I wanted to be a drug lord because they're the ones that I saw getting the real money. And those were the people that I saw with real power. You see what I'm saying? And the way that they gave back to the community because they took so much from it, you understand? So it was only right that they put a little more back into it, but they ain't do it in a way that I felt that it was effective enough to produce an effective change in the community. You know, a lot of people get money and they'll leave. Like, I grew up with no daddy. You understand where I'm coming from? I grew up with no love. I ain't get no love and no affection from no woman. So I ain't, you understand where I'm coming from? Like, sure, just like that. And a lot of us come from that. Love and affection. Lack is what really breed killers. It depends on what that lack is. You see what I'm saying? It breed robbers. It breed kidnappers. It breed everything that you see out there in the street because it starts at home. You understand where I'm coming from? But where's home when you ain't got no home to go? To but the streets.
Ray, I want to ask.
This was from Native Land Pod, and this young man, Lewis, lives here in my wonderful city of Birmingham, Alabama. He's a man who has changed his life for the better. So that's part of what he talked about, changing his life for the better. And as I said, I was telling the story of the Hintons, Rodney and Sydney, and it struck me that we grow up in a society where people sometimes would rather be the worst of us because of the trauma in their lives. Again, that's what Dr. DeGroy was talking about. She was talking about the trauma in our lives. And I'm going to go back to her and let her finish what she was saying before I finish
common
what
behaviors that I took for granted as, well, cultural. There's adaptive behaviors, survival behaviors. Well, what are they? Let's just say 2019, you have a black mother and a white mother. The sons go to school together. They find themselves at a meeting. The black mother leans over to the white mother and says, I just wanted to mention to you that I noticed that your son is really doing quite well. And the white mother's response is, oh, thank you. She begins to go on and on about he won the science fair, his uncle's an astronaut. She's just oozing. She realizes the black mother's son is actually excelling her son. And she says, well, wait a minute. Your son's the one that's really coming along. And the black mother responds, oh my God, he's a handful, but oh, he just works my nerves. Now, when I'm working with African-American people, it doesn't matter what the audience is. It doesn't matter what class. If I were to ask, is she very proud while she's saying those denigrating things? And everybody laughs and goes, of course, there's a secret. Because everybody black knows that even though the black mother is going, oh my God, she's really proud. So now let's roll that scene back 300 years. And let's say this black mother is working in the fields and a white slave owner comes through and says, wow, that boy is really coming along. What is she going to say? No, he's not. He's stupid. He's shiftless. He can't work because I don't want you to sell him. So I denigrate them to protect them. That is called appropriate adaptation when living in a hostile environment. The little white boy, say Timmy, he feels really comfortable and happy about what his mom just said about him. And Trey looks at his mom and wonders, why can't you be proud of me? Because he doesn't understand the secret yet. And by the time he learns the secret, he will have already been injured by it. Post-traumatic
There
slave.
it is. Not so simple explanation, but a simple explanation as to the trauma in the child's life. As you see, the child is trying to find a solution to a problem of his family. How do you feed your family? How do you care for your family? You feel no love. Therefore, you act out in certain ways. You are a victim of this system to a certain degree. Now, again, I could say all day, well, Alvin, you're making excuses for people. You're making excuses for people doing bad things. No, I'm not. I'm giving you causes for why those bad things happen. So when I say this, what does that mean? That society needs to look at itself and see why things happen. Now, if I wanted to follow the Rodney Hinton case a little bit further, and I want to show you a little bit more why that tragedy gets even worse, here's a video that you need to see.
Who killed Ryan Hinton has not been released, and Chief Teresa Thigi says she does not intend to.
So tonight, anchor Brent Bugansky shows you why police say that's legal under current law. He's joining us live tonight to explain more. Good evening, Brett.
Hey, good evening, Craig and Tanya. So it appears that the Cincinnati Police Department is arguing that the officers in this case are victims under Marsy's Law. And while that's happening, an Ohio newspaper is challenging that very argument in a separate case, and it's already gone to the Ohio Supreme Court.
There's a real question about whether an average voter expected or understood the term victim to cover a police officer.
Ohio voters approved Marsy's Law in 2017 with a Bill of Rights that includes notifying victims about information in their court case and gives them the option to redact their information from public records.
Technically, under Marsy's Law, there's no provision that allows us to release it at all. So we will see where this goes in the court system.
Cincinnati Police Chief Teresa Thigi appears on the Lincoln Ware Show Monday, confirming they will not release the names of the police officers involved in last Thursday's fatal shooting of 18-year-old Ryan.
Remember when I told you society sees Damien McDaniel as a monster? Well, Ryan Hinton, the boy that was killed by the police standards, is the monster, and the police are the victims. Yet, wouldn't the person whose car is stolen be the victim? And would not Ryan Hinton be a victim of the police who shot him? Instead, the offense is against them. We had to ask that question. Why is the offense against the police? What makes the offense against the police? Did Ryan really point the gun at the police? It looked in the video as if Ryan was running away and was shot by the police. So the question I have is, why then are they victims? Again, if PTSD is the issue here, police have PTSD. So now you're a victim because you are afraid of this young black man that you're treating as a monster, as they would a Damien McDaniel, who's an actual criminal, and I want to say alleged criminal. Let's put it that way, because he already had charges before the charges here. Then what happens next is what happens to his father. His father becomes the next monster. In the way the news media is painting this already, the Ryan Hinton story is not as important as the father's story. Rodney's story. And what happened to that police officer, because he's the victim. So as the circle goes around, the two black men in the middle are no longer the victim. They are the problem. Again, this goes back to the same issue as before. You're seen as a monster if you lash out against the system in which you're in. Let's say you're a slave boy and you run away from home and they catch you and they whip you, and your father's angry about the whipping, so then he attacks the master himself. Now who's the monster? Who's the victim? The slave master is the victim, and the little boy, the father who feels helpless in that situation, who decides to lash out, is now the victim of that same crime, right? But the society will say he's a monster. The child is a monster. They are the ones who are committing the crime. Therefore, the master is the victim. Now, I've been talking about this for a while. Let me let DeGrew finish her
Witnessed it in
conversation
their
about
environment, right? People who are continuing to be oppressed, that exacerbates any possibility of healing. So it's not post-traumatic stress disorder, because then it becomes part of what we call your socialization process. So you begin to normalize a way of living and being, everything from what we eat to what we believe it means to be a friend. All of these things are colored by history. And if you don't understand it, you're going to fold in things that you've just assumed are normal. But post-traumatic stress disorder, exaggerated startle response, outbursts of anger, feeling of foreshortened future. There was a point where there were African-American children in different urban settings that didn't expect to live to be adults because they saw so much death, that they started planning their funerals like at 13, 12, as young as 10. When you start looking at the simple biology, you start looking at the impact of stress on health. And while we look at general stress, we know finances, you have illnesses, all these different things. How about being Black? How does factoring in being Black in America impact your stress level and therefore your body's ability to operate its own immune system? Because we know it compromises the immune system. Once you understand it, then you can deal with it. Because you see, it's habitual. You're socialized. It becomes part of your being. So one of the ways you begin to address that multi-generational trauma.
Okay, well, then how do we get out of this situation?
Part of
What
your
do we
being.
do next?
So one of the ways you begin to address that multi-generational trauma is to work with the people it directly impacts, to hear from them. And when you give the people the information, they can use it. I think the first order of business is beginning to have a conversation. And the other is to educate the larger society. You have to stop the assault. So this is not purely a clinical thing. This requires social justice and change. That's where part of the healing is. It's not in a clinical setting or in a pill. It's in fairness and justice and safety and equity. We got to work with some of those clinical things, some of those issues of panic and anxiety. And we also have to deal with the fact that you have a system that is set up to oppress you and to continue to injure you. Both those things have to be dealt with. And they cannot singularly by themselves affect a change. They have to be done collectively.
I just want to give all credit to AJ Plus and Dr. LeBroy because she is such an intelligent individual, and what she's speaking on is seriously a matter that we have to look into. So what am I concluding here to talk to you about? That we have an opportunity to change the trajectory of our people, so that more cases like the Hintons don't happen, so that more Damien McDaniels don't happen. We have a chance. But what do we have to do in order to get past that point? What do we have to do in our society to reach that? We have to reach out. We have to show love. We have to show respect. We have to show them the path. We have to use people like Dr. LeBroy and Dr. Orlando, who can talk to young Black men and women and try to help them through their issues and get them to the level of understanding, changing behaviors, getting a proper education, and moving on and achieving. Those are the things that can happen. And of course, I'm always a spiritual person. I believe if you believe in God, that God will show you the path of love, of forgiveness. He will show you how to progress in life. He will help you move mountains out of your way. So that's all I want to say in conclusion today. I want to thank you again for watching Thought You're Awoke, No Speed Limit Podcast. You folks have a wonderful.
You have been listening to Thought You're Awoke, No Speed Limit Podcast.